point that I like to make is embracing the thing that happens by accident. So when you're trying to define or create a process, or write a song, or write or do anything, or write a book, write a short story, there's a if whatever you're dealing with, say you establish a subject, or a chord progression, or an idea for a painting, or in my example, to create a work of art out of a can. So say I had a can and I said, how do I want to create a piece of art out of this? If the first step that I take is to embrace the thing that happens by accident, that's the dent. The dent just wants to happen to a can. Like if you have a can,
dents happen. It's an imperfect world.
Yeah, it wants, like, one of the first things that's going to happen if it gets knocked over, like, it wants to be dented. It's just a thing that happens naturally. And so embracing that provides an ease, and it provides
an entry point.
Like an entry point, and where part of the work has already been done for you because it wants to happen. So
I love this.
And so part of the philosophy behind the work is following that. And there's a whole philosophy based on going with the flow, and following the path of least resistance, and that idea. And likewise, the scratch also happens by accident. When the scratch is repeated and refined, and alternated, and it ends up literally revealing the underlying beauty of the material.
Exactly.
And not in a metaphorical sense.
Right. For reals.
Yeah, for an actual, yeah. And so that's, repetition and refinement, that's a theme, or it's a theme that happens there. It also happens with the dent itself when it's repeated, refined, combined, composed. It starts to become beautiful. But then again, the idea of going with the flow, you can't make a design. You can't make these things do whatever you want. So you can't have a predetermined pattern or arrangement and then try to create it, because the cylinder has to allow these things to happen.
It's unforgiving.
You can't force it.
Right.
Yeah. And so trying to go against that, the thing that happens naturally or by accident, that not only is it an indicator of the path to follow, but it's a rule. Like you can't do something that it won't allow you, because it will then fail.
Right.
It'll bind, it'll rip, it'll tear. And so that has to be followed throughout. And that then becomes, but that's something that's not like on the viewer's side, like from the perspective of the art viewer, that's not necessarily apparent.
Right.
So, and like a lot of people will assume, like, oh, you can just make it, like, hey, can you make it spell my name? Or hey, can you? But like I said, the explanation behind the work, it deepens the understanding of the work, and I think the explanation is kind of part of the art itself in this way, in a way that it's not for a lot of art. Like a lot of fine art, there's a lot of paintings where, like, the explanation would like, at least in the artist's opinion, the explanation would ruin the art.
Right.
Where it's supposed to be this unadulterated interpretation of the viewer. They're supposed to take what they interpret from it. I think it was Renoir. Actually, it was a quote by Renoir who said that it's something to the effect of like, if art has to be explained, then it's no longer art.
That's pretty heavy.
Yeah, and while it's not it's not false. It's not completely true because it's not telling the whole story. Essentially,
Right.
it's just focusing on what he thinks.
Right.
It's not all encompassing, but it's a whole school of thought. It didn't prevent it from becoming that, but it's also something that I don't fully agree with. It's a concept that is applicable. Like, there definitely is art that doesn't need an explanation, but it's not all encompassing for all art. That would be a limiting statement on art, which goes against. I mean, art is
Limitless.
not bound by that one thing, in my opinion.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's interesting. There's a movement, like in music, especially, I'm thinking, almost away from that, coming up with your own interpretation of like a song's lyrics or something, for example, because, you can search for a song's lyrics and then it'll also say, what does this song mean? And then you start reading that and you're like, oh.
Oh, that's
But wait a minute.
yeah, yeah, and it could. I have experienced that where I think it was like VH1. It did that, like, behind the lyrics, or explained what that Def Leppard song really meant. and it's honestly, I'm like, wow, I didn't know that's what that song was about, and that it changes your opinion of that song.
Yeah,
So
it really can.
in that way, and then I guess from there, it's really just it's another opinion on whether people should have their own unadulterated interpretation of that song, or what they thought it meant, or if they should know what the artist themselves meant.
Right. Right. Or hold both of those two things at the same time. Right. I think for me, that's what I try to do.
Yeah. And so that is an interesting crossover there. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
I prepared some images too.
Oh, yeah.
If you'd like to take a look.
I would love to.
Are we able to let's see, let me share content.
I believe you should be able to, unless I accidentally kept it from happening. If I did, I apologize. I can try to figure that out.
We should be here.
I'm still getting used to the whole Zoom phenomena. There we go. Hey, here we go.
Yeah, so this is a recent piece, and this design, although it was based on an existing design, now there can be variations on an existing design that will kind of establish it'll be a distinct enough variation to be a standalone design. So that's also a concept behind the work, and about discovery and it's something that occurs in art a lot, is inspiration. So you can be inspired by, like, I was very inspired by Salvador Dali and MC Escher.
Right.
So I could then go on to create surrealistic paintings that would be called or considered derivative of Salvador Dali or MC Escher.
Right.
But they would still be their own unique expressions. So I'm sure there's similar things in music to where you can tell that a musician is inspired by another musician.
Right. I'm seeing myself now as being derivative.
but it's not. And then, I mean, some people, this is a piece here. Now, and the framing and the presentation of the art is also a key element. So this is an acrylic frame, like a display box that the sculpture is displayed in, and this one has been lined with reflective material so that it shows you kind of see it from all angles.
Right, that's what's happening. Okay, because I didn't even like
Yeah,
comprehend what was happening there. I'm like, did he cut the top off and glue it to the top of the box? No,
yeah,
that's VR.
it's yeah, kind of, it's a like a infinity, like an infinity box kind of idea.
That's awesome. Man, don't make it go away. I'm in love.
Yeah.
Come back, come back.
Uh,
No.
so, but that's also another concept is it's kind of an idea. It's kind of like a postmodern idea where, you know, a postmodernist would, you know, like Andy Warhol, like the Campbell soup can could be considered a postmodernist piece because it examines this ordinary thing, whereas before art had been more focused on things of beauty and these more quote unquote significant things like historical, you know, like the gods and the stories from various religions, and like, so these things that were very meaningful.
Right.
But then the idea that meaning could be derived from ordinary, these ordinary objects that had now, like, mass production was a relatively new thing. And so this was the new, like, these were like the new elements of inspiration. These were the, and it's not to denigrate, you know, works of the great artists that found inspiration in, you know, ancient stories or figures or political figures or, you know, portraits of kings and queens.
Grand themes.
Yeah, these grand themes, they're not, you know, they're not denigrated by finding meaning within, you know, a tin can.
No.
But I think it speaks more to humans' perception of art, that both can be true. I mean, because I find the classics very, you know, beautiful and, you know, all that.
I love the Ninja Turtles too.
I was very, that was a big thing for me, honestly. That was a big thing. Yeah, back in middle school. But
That's awesome.
a friend of mine and I, in the 6th grade, we wanted to develop our own comic book, inspired by the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but it was more to do with, we just thought of another animal,
Right.
and it was poodles.
It was poodles.
He had a pet. His mom had a pet poodle, and, you know,
Poodles are fierce.
yeah, and they were like, I think they were, yeah, it was the Psycho Poodles from Hell. So it was a gang of poodles. It was, you know, but but that's the thing. It was a derivative of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Right.
And in that way, it's kind of an inescapable idea at its core, because we're all inspired. We all use words, man. It's like we didn't make these words up.
No,
So
you didn't build that.
Them.
Right.
Yeah, we didn't build that. And so I think that's an important thing to realize in both, because it can instill humility and an appreciation for others' works,
Right.
As well as lead to new unique ideas that have these other things at their core. So
if you could have told the Noah in the past that was creating the Psycho Poodles, any art advice, what would you have told yourself? Just keep going.
Yeah, just keep going. Don't stop. Yeah.
Don't stop. Don't stop, my man.
Yeah.
I answered for you, but I kind of read your mind. I'm like, reach over there. I should just interview myself.
You really should. Honestly, I mean, I think you have, you know, as varied and interesting of a creative past as anyone.
Wow.
So
thank you.
I don't know how that would work, but
I'd wear 2 different shirts.
2 different shirts.
I think I've got one more with the collar in the closet, maybe. Yeah. That's funny. Oh my gosh, this is just the best. I'm so glad that you joined me for this talk today.
Yeah. Thanks for having
So
me.
yeah, man. Oh, this is great. I'm over the moon. It's one thought I wanted to ask actually, or one question I wanted to ask you. Uh, do you have any tips for aspiring artists, or like maybe a simple lesson that you could share with them to, kind of open their minds a little bit about something to do with any medium of art?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I definitely encourage uh, anyone to try art. And I would refer back to to the path I followed. Trial and error. Try a couple of different things. See what interests you most. Refer to your own interests to inform how to carry forward. Um, I think once you get started, I think it's important to so say if you started drawing and you've been drawing for a couple of months, I think it's important to realize the progress that you've made. So like if you say just drawing, for example, um, keep your drawings and uh, and monitor your progress. So uh, so that you can see the improvement that you've made. I
Right.
think that's helpful. Be, like I said, because you can use the progress that you've made to kind of determine that there's future progress to be made. But at the same time, it can be humbling um, to know that you're not as good as you will be in the future. Um,
If you keep going.
yes, if you keep going. So it's both encouraging to stay on track, um, but also humbling because there should never be a point as an artist to where you think that you're the best that you'll ever be. Um, and that's with any practice. You're always going to have another aha moment. You're always going to be able to refine your skill further. Um, and well, something that you've done, I think, teaching is an important. Teaching is, they say that knowing something is the first step, but when you're able to teach someone else to do something, you're actually teaching yourself. So by the act of teaching, you're actually teaching yourself as the teacher, um, which I'm sure you've experienced because I know you've done instruction and taught for a long time now. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that's something that you've experienced as well.
Especially for the fundamentals. For me, that's when I really learned my fundamentals, was
Hmm.
when repeating them to others. And then it's just
Yeah,
like, there's layers to that, right? Like I know the fundamentals. I know how to read music. I can read music. But then all of a sudden there's like another layer that's like, oh, now I understand how that works. I don't just know how to do it.
right.
You see deeper inside of it.
Yeah, yeah. And there's definitely deeper layers that are exposed through through practice, through repetition, but then also through teaching. Definitely.
So share
But
your
yeah,
knowledge.
yes, share your knowledge. And unfortunately, we in the technological climate that we exist in today, it's sharing is easier than it's ever been. So you can have an Instagram or through Facebook or other social media. Um, there's an unprecedented access to other people's eyes and ears right now, um, which I think is amazing. It's really, even with digital art, there's so many. Like access to art itself, to art history, and to an audience is at levels that it's never been before, which I think is great. And because I think the more people that are given the opportunity to create art, the better. I mean,
Absolutely.
because when you look at the numbers, historically, there's been people that might have been the next great artist, but they were just never had the opportunity to create art. And they were maybe or maybe it took them, it happened later. It happened when they were an adult instead of when they were, a kid or a teenager. So,
Right.
but it's that access, I think, is very important. And it gives, a potential artist the opportunity to find what type of art they like. And when I was talking about the path of myself as an artist, you can find one thing. You can start off, as a painter, and then your path might lead you to be a sculptor, or vice versa. But experiencing and following that path it's important, and it's like the idea of picking one thing is not the way to go. And that's why I would recommend trial, trying different things, trying combining different things.
Right.
It's basically, anything goes. And I
Right.
think that's also one of the great things about it, is like you can do whatever you want,
Right.
with certain restrictions apply. But
Don't hurt anybody, okay?
yeah, don't hurt anybody.
That's not what we're talking about.
Maybe, I wouldn't say don't offend anybody, but
Right.
because there could be a value to to creating something that may be perceived by some to be offensive.
Right.
And at the same time, at least here, in most of the world, we have the freedom to do so, which I think is also great. Sorry, I'm just kind of fidgeting down here.
No, that's all right.
But yeah, so and yeah, I would say, but then there's the path once you find something and realize that it doesn't have to be the thing, and that there's really no restriction. There's access to instruction, so you can learn about a technique, and then develop it yourself. But you don't have to follow the rules, though. You could paint however. You can paint with, you can dip your dog in paint and then let him run around the canvas,
Right.
or maybe not the whole dog, but just his paws or something.
Right.
Maybe might want to clarify.
Dip your dog in paint.
And I would use a non-toxic water-based type of paint if you're going to do that.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, but there's there's an endless number of ideas and opportunities. And so, although, following or practicing an established form of or style of art is great, I also encourage people to explore and try new things. And the path there, like a couple of steps that can be taken to do that, is to find something that happens naturally and embrace that. There's elements of art that exist without form, or without, like, there's color. Color is a big one.
Right.
But repetition, refinement, repetition and refinement are two things that, well, and also precision. So if you can make a precise repeating pattern that alternates, it strikes a beauty. For example, point this out in a way. We've all seen, a dog or a bear or an animal in the clouds. When you look up in the clouds, you say, "Oh, it looks like a whatever."
Like a dragon.
Looks like a dragon. That's something that and that happens because our brains are designed to recognize things like that. Our brains are designed to recognize faces and familiar things. That's literally how we're built. But if you saw a cloud that was a perfect square or a triangle, that'd be like, That would be even more significant than it looks like a teddy bear,
Right.
uh, so there's something to be said for, and I guess it's just maybe it kind of relies on my practice and kind of feelings as an artist. um, it doesn't have to be a thing,
Right. Yes. Right. That's
uh,
huge, actually.
yeah, because there's beauty within because although we're designed to recognize faces and things, we're also we're our brains are built to recognize patterns, repetition, precision, uh, and so uh, re- not relying on, but using any of those things can be an entryway into creating beautiful art. Uh, so there's anything, like you could think of anything that humans are designed to perceive as interesting,
Right.
and you can kind of go from there. And I think that's a good foundation for creating art that will have an impact on people. And it doesn't have to be, I'm not saying like a life-changing impact. They can just look at it and say, wow, that's beautiful,
Right.
or that's interesting, and they might not even know why, because it kind of it relies on our deeper senses to you know it, in a way that's not, these aren't like the higher levels of our senses. You see a face, you don't necessarily know why a face is beautiful. Like you can see and recognize a face, but there's the underlying symmetry, uh, the composition, the arrangement of these things that are beautiful, but we don't exactly know why. It's like,
Right.
so it kind of points out the more mysterious parts of ourselves in a way, of uh, and of how we're designed, of how our brains are designed to perceive beauty and significance. And I think that's just the most interesting stuff. Uh,
Yeah. Right. Because it's already been done a million times, like pictures of bears and people and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. And not that
yeah.
there's anything wrong with that. If that's
Not
your
that there's
jam,
anything wrong with it,
if
but
that's your jam, keep going.
yeah, but I mean, it can be a beautiful bear, and you can say, bears are, majestic creatures, but it could be, maybe it's a different color bear,
Right.
or maybe you can take these things and if there's any way to put your own uh, personal twist, or your own kind of interpretation, because
Right. Your point of
interpretation,
view.
I think, is, yeah, your point of view and your interpretation is, and this is kind of where it ties into philosophy, is like that's the one thing, your perspective on the world is the one thing no one else has,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
it's not to say that it's the the one thing that you have, it's just the one thing no one else has. And so providing something from your unique perspective, uh, that as a baseline, that's what someone else can relate to, and and say, oh wow, so I never looked at it that way, because they couldn't, because
Right.
it takes
Exactly.
that unique perspective to point that out to other people. And in that way, it's like a learning process. When you view or hear or experience something that is unique to someone's perspective, you're learning. You're learning something new. And I think that I mean, it's learning on a it's like a micro unit of learning,
Right.
but it is in a way. When you see something and it has that effect, it's a new thing. You're taking in new information,
Right. Like it's all been
which,
done, but you haven't seen the best of me.
right, and that, yeah, and like we had touched on earlier, there really is nothing new under the sun. It's combinations of, or an alternation of, something that exists in a combination maybe that had never been expressed before, or maybe it had been expressed before, but this person was never exposed to it. So,
Right.
I mean, because there's ideas throughout art and music that have been, independently expressed by different people. Maybe, they didn't know that, like this guy in
Like
Germany
the
didn't.
wheel.
Right. Exactly. And so, there might be a guy who discovered, funk music in Germany, and a guy that discovered it,
1762.
right. But and it doesn't negate either or. But hey, I think the more people that are doing it, the more likelihood of a viewer taking it in and experiencing it, that likelihood raises. And I wouldn't let and doing, if you even doing art that's similar to other art, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not illegitimate, because even if you tried to be just like Picasso, or to paint just like, or to play music just like someone else, there is, like, you cannot be that other person. So it's
Right.
always going to have this slight difference. Like, I think of it, Faith No More did a cover of Easy Like Sunday Morning,
Right.
and it's pretty darn close to the original. Like,
Right.
it's
They were going for it.
they were really going for it. But and I've done it, I've listened to both of them, like the Commodore's original, and it's like, without knowing, like, say if you were in like a restaurant or somewhere that the music wasn't the sole focus of the environment,
Right. Kind of
you might
quiet
not be
in the
able to
back.
tell. Right.
Right.
You might hear the Faith No More song and think it was the Commodores, because
Right.
it's close enough. But it's in the details is the difference is in the details.
Right.
And so with that idea, even creating art that's in a style or a genre that exists already, that's if it inspires you, if it inspires someone to start creating art, I would definitely encourage them to do so. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to intentionally try to create unique art, because you honestly have no choice.
Right.
It's going to happen no matter what. So keeping that in mind, if it works, and if it would inspire someone to get into art, I would definitely recommend it.
Right.
It's actually, and that could be a good starting point.
It's a great starting point. That's just what I was thinking, right? Like, it's a great point to start, and you don't have to wait until something's perfect to do it, right?
Right.
That's something that will hold me back sometimes, because I do have like this idea that I want to, if I'm going to create something, I want it to be, special, or I want it to be, a representation of what I feel is, what I have to offer, right? My best,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. But that can also like be paralyzing at the same time. So
Yeah.
like, and that's the
Yeah.
thing you don't want. Better to make a bunch of crappy art than no art.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Because through the crappy art, you will get to a point where it's like, oh, I'm not
Well,
crappy anymore.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's part of trial and error, is just pump it out, man.
Yeah.
Just create as much as you can. Well, and for example, so Andy Warhol, because we'd already, and I mean, admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of Andy Warhol. Just going to say it right out. He's never been that much of a personal inspiration to me. Like, I value his work and what it was in context, and his influence. It's all great. I've just never been that, that inspired directly by him. And
Right.
that's neither here nor there. Most of his work was screen printed. And so screen printing is a process of repetition. So to make one print, like, so the press would be running and printing multiple pages and pages, and he would make he would change the ink color and do different combinations of stuff. But he would make hundreds and hundreds of prints,
Right.
and they would all vary slightly, and then go through and pick out 5 of them that had this certain something that just happened. It happened by accident. You know, it was
Right.
the thing that it was just this. It was this combination of things that you didn't really even have control over, because it was kind of a chaotic process of being repeated, with these variables occurring. So you could in a day you could make 100 doodles,
Right.
and 90 of them might just be like, but there's going to be 10 of them. They're like, wow, there's something about that, like the way that happened.
Right. That curve. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Look at that little swoop.
Yeah. And that's repetition and refinement. But and there's something to that, and that's kind of a it's step up the repetition and then go through, and through refinement choose the few out of the many that have that certain something. And that's, you're relying on your own perception to choose. And that's part of being an artist in that way, in a way that Warhol kind of pointed out, is that not only is the artist a creator, but the artist can be a selector.
Right.
So you can create a whole bunch of stuff and then select what you think is beautiful.
Right. And it wouldn't have happened if you hadn't gone through the process of creating a whole bunch of stuff. You wouldn't have gotten
exactly. You wouldn't. It would have taken you. You wouldn't be able to create those couple of pieces intently. You couldn't have sat down to be like, I'm gonna make this one piece exactly how I want it. You're better off creating an abundance of pieces and then selecting for beauty afterwards, which is that's a process that might not seem
fun.
Because you could go go to an art gallery and go look at all the art and pick your favorite piece. Now you're an artist because you selected what you thought was beautiful out of this mass of work.
Right.
It's not necessarily the creative process. You're not creating while you're doing that, but you're using your powers of interpretation and your perception of beauty.
Right. Your inner eye, your artist's inner eye.
Yeah. And you're selecting for composition, for balance, color, or whatever the elements of the piece are. You're selecting them in their optimal combination, and that's just as important, I think.
Right on.
Yeah.
Dude, okay, well, do me a favor. Can you share us your social media links, and then tell us what you are currently working on right now?
Sure. Well, my main social media is my Instagram.
Okay.
Instagram, and I guess and YouTube. And it's just my name, Noah Deledda. You actually just Google my name and the stuff pops up. I'm currently working on. I've just last week I discovered a new denting pattern.
Ooh.
So I've been kind of working on that, just repeating it over and over again, and kind of because there'll be like a raw discovery, and then it has to be refined a little bit, because I have these imaginary standards that I've created.
Okay.
So a design has to meet these certain standards of imaginary stuff.
Give me a standard. Give me one of them.
Well, the way, like, there can't be any like a line can't just end. Like there's the features have to have certain qualities. Maybe it's even kind of hard to explain.
That's fair.
Yeah, so it has to meet my kind of like my superficial standards. But it's getting there. It's pretty close. But there's also variables. So when I create a design, I determine how many dents are created at the base of a piece.
Okay.
So I'm still kind of in that stage of development with this design. So I've been working on that. Also, besides creating the sculptures themselves, documenting the works, so photographing and making detail videos of the works has kind of led me into making more like creative video projects. I just noticed I had a couple of short videos, but apparently I can't share videos on here.
Oh no, there might be a thing that says optimize for video viewing. If you do the share screen at the bottom, the very bottom of that window, there says optimize for audio, optimize for video. Do you see that, or is that not an option for you?
No.
Okay.
Let's see. Maybe tap more.
We can, if you can send me that, I can link that to this in some way after the fact.
Yeah. I'll message them over to you.
Okay.
But yeah, but for instance, I would make like a stop motion videos that will kind of document the pieces from start to finish in stages. And that's been, so I have a couple of those that are in progress as well. So a couple of video projects.
How long does that take to do one from start to finish and document it like that?
The longest one has taken was 2 weeks.
Yeah, I was thinking a week or two.
Yeah, because it can be, and then I think the shortest that one has taken is probably like 3 days.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's usually pretty. It usually takes a while.
I bet. I mean, because you're doing the one thing, then you're like, okay, take a picture. All right, take it down. Yeah. Okay, here we do the next one. I mean, that's dedication, people. Okay, that's what it looks like. That's beautiful, man. Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Noah, thank you so much for sharing your amazing gifts with us and being my good friend and all the kind things you said about me. And did I mention me? No, but thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
We got to stay in touch.
Yes.
More frequently. The frequency thing. We'll get that.
Repetition.
Exactly. Yeah. And refinement. We're going to do that. And precision. So everyone, thank you again. This is Noah Deledda. Do the Google on him. He's amazing. Great guy. Amazing art. And maybe I will try to find some of those oil painting pictures too, so we can share some of your other stuff.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
After the fact, like I said, we'll do some kind of thing like that.
Yeah. I'll follow up with some stuff. I'm sure I have. I'm sure I can dig some stuff up. I'll try to at least find the pencil drawing and a couple of paintings.
I was just thinking about that. That would be awesome. All right, so we'll do that, and when this gets released, of course, you'll be the first to know. And
excellent.
Thank you again from the bottom of my heart, man. This was awesome.
Oh, thank you. It's great to see you and talk with you.
Yeah,
it's almost like you're here.
I know, isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
It's really cool. Well, we'll see what happens in the future, but I guess we're signing off, and thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this, and let us know what you think in the comments and all that jazz. And if you want to click the subscribe and all that stuff, go ahead and do that. And get that. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Take care, guys.
Yep.
Peace.